7 years before. He would be given only a limited time to defend himself. All speeches in the Athenian courts were timed by a water clock. One jar of water steadily running into another. But Socrates shows no fear in the face of his accusers. In fact, he is positively stubborn. He explains that far from corrupting Athens, his life of questioning has done nothing but improve the city.
To put it bluntly, I've been assigned to this city, as if to a large horse which is inclined to be lazy and is in need of some great stinging fly. And all day long I'll never cease to settle, here, there, everywhere, rousing and reproving every one of you.
It is not an approach designed to win sympathy. Socrates is setting himself and his life against the entire Athenian state.
He is doing what he thinks is the right thing to do. He thinks the life he has chosen, this life of thinking for yourself, is the best life. As he says in his speech, the unexamined life is not worth living for a human being.
If Socrates had simply apologized to the court, he might well have been acquitted. But instead, he demands free dinners for life, for all the work he has done.
I can just imagine what that jury and the audience of that trial must have thought at the time. They must have been absolutely speechless.
When the final vote came, the verdict could hardly have been a surprise. The court found Socrates guilty with the penalty of death. But Socrates reacted with calm and serenity.
Well now, it is time to be off, I to die and you to live. But which of us has the happier prospect is unknown to anyone but heaven.
Socrates was taken from the court to Athens prison. The site of this prison still exists. We can still trace the layout of the cell in which Socrates was probably held. And we still have accounts of Socrates' last days from friends who visited him in his cell. They are among the most famous Greek writings. For with his death, Socrates would transform Athens. He would show his fellow citizens that the principles of reason, of questioning the world, were something worth dying for. Socrates would be executed in the traditional Athenian manner, by drinking hemlock. Some of the hemlock cups used for the poison are still preserved. Death by hemlock is excruciatingly painful, causing gradual paralysis of the central nervous system. But as the moment of his execution drew near, Socrates turned to his friends, treating the whole affair as if it were nothing at all.
For me, the fated hour calls. In other words, I think it's about time I took my bath. I prefer to wash before drinking the poison, rather than give the women the bother of washing me when I am dead.
But as the hemlock was poured, his friends broke down. we have the account of one named Fido.
In spite of myself, the tears came pouring down, so that I covered my face and wept broken-heartedly. And then everyone in the room broke down, except Socrates himself, who said, "Really, my friends, what a way to behave. I'm told that one should make one's end in a reverent silence. Calm yourselves and be brave."
As Socrates lay back on his bed and let the poison take effect, his friends watched in silence. Here was a man who was dying not for glory, not for fame and honor, but for the sake of his principles, because he believed that man should question the world around him. It was a sight they would never forget.
Socrates, in his life and in his death, becomes a completely new Greek hero. From now on, the hero is a person of conviction, a person who will follow nothing but the dictates of his intellectual conscience, and that is a new conception of what a human being is like and what a good human being must be like.
For centuries, the Athenians had believed in one ideal: the vision of a martial warrior hero. It had driven them to conquer great foes, to build a mighty empire. But now, in the depths of defeat, they discovered a new figure to venerate. Effigies of Socrates have been found amongst the ruins of the Athenian prison. Perhaps offerings to the dead philosopher.
Perhaps the most important lesson that Socrates left is the need to be critical and the need to be self-critical. The interesting thing that I see in Athens in the years after the execution of Socrates is this same capacity to look at themselves and recognize that they have perhaps gone too far in the past, and indeed to embrace a certain kind of maturity.
Athens was never again a great imperial power. But neither did her democracy lapse again into mob rule. Instead, she became a city of intellectual inquiry. A haven of study and discussion, where Socrates' students and his students' students slowly began to build a world based on reason. Plato tried to formulate the ideal society. Aristotle studied nature, establishing biology and zoology. And slowly the ideas and work of these Greek thinkers began to spread across the known world.
One could say that a major part of the energy of the Athenians turns into building what one might call empires of thought. So where before you had Athens sending its ships to the various islands in order to collect taxes, here you have reason extending its dominion over all areas in which our lives are actually lived.
Socrates' principles of reason, of questioning assumptions and the world around you, still endure. In the space of less than 200 years, the ancient Greeks transformed their world. For amongst these ruins, a few great figures carved a mighty empire. They invented democracy and politics, science and philosophy. They gave us literature and drama, art and monuments which still take our breath away. And ultimately, these Greeks taught us how to reason and think. Two and a half thousand years later, their astonishing achievements continue to shape our world.